blackest eyes, the devil's eyes.
Hail to the king, baby.
Boy! The plan is, kill the brain, and you kill the ghoul.
Welcome to hell.
I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
Welcome to prime time.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the
Pube Zero and Hyperpube.
Hyperpube.
Whilst we're on the topic, would you consider Cube to be a horror movie?
I would actually. I only saw them all three recently. I seen the first one ages ago. I'd probably say it was quite horrific because it's a sort of scenario I really wouldn't want to be in. And
in the Rubik's Cube of death.
Yeah, I actually liked Hypercube.
Right.
I don't know why. I just think it was interesting. They added a lot more sci-fi element into it. That one's less of a horror. Yeah, is it Cube Zero? Is the prequel? That one's probably.
I believe so. Yeah, it's like the precursor.
That's probably the most horrific, to be honest.
I've made a mistake. The director was Vincenzo Natali, who went on to direct Splice, which is a really, really fun film. If you've seen that,
I've not actually. No, I might check that out.
I think it's Sarah Polley and Adrian Brody.
Nice.
Really, really fun film about basically, like most horror films, any basically horror sci-fi. Don't fuck with shit.
Yeah.
And then things go sideways. It's like the thing. All right, we'll just dig up this block of ice next to this space. What were you thinking? You've dug up the block of ice, clearly with an alien in it.
Started poking it.
Start terrible stuff happens. I'm having a kip for maybe 100,000 years, and somebody starts poking and prodding me, putting a drill into me. I'm gonna go nuts.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go.
I'm gonna absorb them all.
I know.
It's like I found this book in the cellar of this cabin that we're not supposed to be in, technically. It's made out of human skin and inked in blood. Oh sweet, let's thumb through this.
Let's translate it, put it onto your recording, so anybody who comes back and wants to listen to what we'll probably describe as the first ever podcast.
Oh, that would be good listening as well. I'm Professor Obi. Damn.
It should be printed on t-shirts for in order to survive a horror film. Don't read from the book. Don't disturb the grave.
Yeah.
Don't bury your child in the pet cemetery. Don't go into the forbidden forest and see that haunted amusement park. Just stay away from it.
Just nope.
It'll be fun. We'll get a kegger going. We'll pound a couple of beers, hammer up some drywall. Oh my god.
Well,
everybody's dying.
The big one, if you knock down the masked killer, cut his head off with his own weapon. Don't just slowly step over his hand. It's like you're asking to die.
I'm gonna try and get round him. If you're not too sure, you've still got some ammunition left in that gun. Just keep firing.
Yeah.
And I'm not one for glorifying the use of violence or even firearms for that matter. But just keep shooting.
Exactly.
Just get the way you think you think you've shot him enough. Keep doing it until you keep hearing that recurring click, the click, 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 click. Yeah, you know what? I've shot him enough.
At that point, start hammering his face with the barrel of the gun. Just wait until the police arrive. He's dust. He's probably dead.
And just start in what's it called? Channeling Nicolas Cage from 8mm. Yeah. Just saying, did he hurt you? And then just keep a pistol whipping him until.
There's an episode of have you seen Community?
I've not seen them all. I've seen quite a few of them.
They always do a Halloween episode, and one of them they're all telling stories, and is it Ahmed? Ahmed's the geeky one in it. The way he tells the story is great. It's him and Britta are in a cabin together, and they turn the radio on, but obviously the radio doesn't immediately play the announcement about the killer that's escaped. So he's doing the whole music sound effect for about 3 minutes. And he says it's just not natural for that to occur. But then when it does go on, what they do is they stand back to back holding weapons in the cabin all night. It's like, should we have sex? No. I love you, you're so practical. Just do that. Decent show.
Oh, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it sort of, for me, dropped a little bit whenever Dan Harmon stepped away from it, but I think he came back later on.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed Chevy Chase in it. Obviously, there was, outside issues involved in that, but
it's just nice to see him on screen again, to be honest.
Yeah, I loved him, and I think it's much underloved. Not that we're trying to depart from doing horror. Spies Like Us with him and Dan Aykroyd, phenomenal movie. It's the bit where he breaks down and starts crying because he's trying to do the is it the CIA or the FBI examination, and he's trying to get Dan Aykroyd to tell him what KGB stands for.
Yeah. He did the likes of Fletch and is it John Carpenter's The Invisible Man as well?
Was it Memoirs of the Invisible Man?
That's right. Yeah, I actually quite liked
him
it.
And it's for me, it's very hard to recreate the magic of the original, because it's that voice, Claude Rains. And just for anybody listening, I have Claude Rains tattooed into my skin and my forearm, thus reducing my likelihood of getting jobs further down the line. But yeah, it's that voice. It's phenomenal. Apparently the director, I believe it's James Whale. Anybody who is listening, please correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it is James Whale, who directed Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. He just wanted that voice. And there's a phenomenal little backstory about where he took his daughter to go and see it. I think it was in a cinema in Philadelphia, and he just started telling his daughter stories about the making of the movie, and people stopped watching the movie, just listened to him telling the stories about making the movie. But yeah, phenomenal movie. But I think it was very difficult to try and recreate that, which is why I think they went more of a fun ride with it rather than sort of horror.
Yeah. And just like with the more recent one, I've not seen it yet, the new Invisible Man. I think that's the best way to do it, is to not try to recreate the original, to go a different way, because I've heard of it. You've mentioned it touches upon some very dark themes even.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. And it's Leigh Whannell, who has absolutely smashed it, going from writing to then directing. From my understanding, it's very difficult to, especially if you're not turning your own source material into a movie. But he wrote Saw, I believe he did The Conjuring, he did Insidious, I believe he wrote Deadly Silence. I could be wrong, I might have got that name wrong. But he's worked obviously very closely with James Wan, who's started 3, possibly 4 franchises. But he then went on to direct one of the Insidious movies, and then he's done I think he might have done the sequel to The Conjuring, I could be wrong. He did Upgrade, which is a really, really good movie, and then The Invisible Man. And apparently he has some sort of treatment for some of the Universal Monster movies. So I'm in. Like, he's doing really, really well.
They should do more.
So he's very...
I know they were on about with the Mummy, which sadly bombed. I've not seen it. The more recent Mummy.
I thought it was fun. It was a good idea for like starting off the universe, and obviously like sort of it didn't take on. And like Javier Bardem, as far as I'm aware, was going to be Frankenstein's monster.
Oh, really?
And he has that sort of presence where he could be very stoic and terrifying, but also very sort of approachable and very nice. And I think he was brilliant in the Skyfall movie. He was a really kind of likable and almost relatable villain.
My partner absolutely loves Javier Bardem, and I've seen Skyfall quite a lot. I've not seen many of the Bond films, not because I don't like them, there's just a lot. So I've seen only...
it's a huge undertaking. It's like 20 odd films.
Yeah. But he's my favourite one, and I'm included because the only ones I've seen is Casino Royale, that one, and Spectre. Now, all the villains in that are some of the 3 probably greatest villain actors of all time, let alone this day and age. Yet the Javier Bardem one just blows it out of the water, like completely.
Because he's like a reverse Bond.
Yeah.
We sort of think he used to be one, and then now he's kind of flipped over to the other side. But phenomenal, so horrific to a certain extent because he's so brutal in it. But he's also charismatic and fun, and that's what you want from a Bond villain without it going into this kind of camp territory. And then the other one that I love is Scaramanga, Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
Which he's just brilliant with that ridiculous gun that he has, but it's still. I really, really enjoy that movie.
Yeah, my partner showed me a clip with him. honest to God, I have to say it. She can't believe I've not seen any of the older Bonds, especially with my huge love of Donald Pleasance and Christopher Lee. It's like everyone I like is in a Bond film, and I've just not. I will watch them definitely. But yes, we'll pull it back because
we'll try and pull it back to what we were talking about, which was
horror.
Which is horror. And moistness, moist.
Some moist pubes in the cube.
So
how did we get to that from moist?
I have no idea. Hyperpube, and then we went sort of a little bit further with it. Sort of, yeah. So bringing it back to horror. So the film that we decided to kind of do a review, and when we say we do a review, it's more so like we just want to discuss it, what we've enjoyed from it, what we've taken away from it, rather than sit and picking a film apart. Yeah, so we've decided to review My Bloody Valentine, 1981.
Yep.
Not the remake, which we'll discuss a little bit later on. But yeah, My Bloody Valentine, which I was turned on to. Maybe not the wrong word to use.
You got moist too.
with my co-host Matthew.
Yeah.
But yeah, he suggested we watch it, and I really enjoyed it. Loads of fun. Tell us how you sort of got into it.
To be honest, the only reason I got into it was I went to see the remake first of all in the cinema in 3D as well, and I enjoyed it, and we will go into that a bit later on. And for years, I really did want to check out the original, but not in a way that I wanted to spend any money in doing so, if you know what I mean. It was just one of those films in the background because it never really gets spoken about, which we'll definitely get into is a real shame because it's worth speaking about. I just noticed it flicking around on Amazon, which is where I watched it, and that's just how I did it. It was actually coming to Valentine's Day at the time, actually, and I just thought, I've watched a lot of Christmas horrors, might as well put it on. Loved it, absolutely. What about yourself? Was it just my suggestion, or is it something that's been in the background?
It's something I've been tempted to watch, possibly as a result of them doing the remake back in, I think it's 2009. Which is, I think it's Patrick Lussier is the director of the remake, and then the original one I believe is George Mahalka. I could be wrong.
Take that down.
But that done, and I found it was a remake of an old. I don't want to use the word slasher because it's not so much a slasher; it's more of somebody getting stoved in with a pickaxe. It's monstrous use of a pickaxe. But it's something I'd never really sort of taken any time, possibly due to the fact that it's maybe, and this is unfortunately so less iconic to a certain extent, at least for me anyway. Obviously you've not got as much of an iconic mask. They didn't do any more sequels apart from the remake back in 2009. And I don't know what they would have done with it. Maybe it's just a case of they want to do a one and done and then move on and try not to make any sequels, because you could potentially have, not dragged it out but added more to it. I think there was more to be
especially
added there,
the way it ends. Yeah, definitely. What I find interesting, because I know we like to go through some of the facts before actually hitting, because what we like to do is we like to touch upon the senses, and we will do that as well. But what I did like in what might be part of what you were even saying there about how it sort of faded into a sort of obscurity as well. The time it came out was 1981. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Friday the 13th had just come out in 1980.
Friday the 13th came out in 1980, I believe, and Halloween. In 1970 it came out 2 years prior.
Exactly. So you're kind of swamped in some of the big guns there, really. But what I did notice, and I don't know if you noticed yourself, at the very beginning of the movie, the caption comes up Thursday the 12th of February, which means the party or actual Valentine's Day itself would have been Saturday the 14th, meaning the day just before that was Friday the 13th, which I thought was a really nice nod, especially when at that point the franchise wouldn't have been anywhere near as big as it was. But
do you reckon that was intentional? Do you reckon the
I hope so.
Friday the 13th before Saturday the Valentine's Day?
I really hope so.
Or maybe it's just one of those. Yeah, or maybe it was just sort of like you could possibly go back to that particular year and see if it did fall on that one, or was it like a little? He winks at the camera. once he's doing this podcast, socially distanced mind, being obviously very responsible amidst the pandemic. But yeah, I believe it may have just been a happy coincidence, or it was an artistic decision they made with it. But yeah, I never realised that.
Yeah, it's daft little things. I was trying to look for more mistakes. I'll be honest, I didn't notice any as well. I think I got too immersed in the film, to be fair, because it was my first viewing. On a rewatch, I might notice a couple of little things. I don't know. Movies aren't perfect, just like people. We're not perfect. That's why we've got you to correct us on our Instagram at Podcast in the Backseat. Okay.
What was that again, Matthew? What was that Instagram page?
Tis, sir, at Podcast in the Backseat. Do give it a
fantastic. I will have to hit the follow button on that one. But yeah, anything we do discuss sort of during the reviews are more sort of like loose fitting chatted, like chat between the two of us. Drop us a message, anything you wish for us to discuss. We'll gladly take it on board and try and incorporate it into any future sort of discussions that we'll have, or any future reviews that we might have, because I'm sure there is absolutely tons of stuff that we will possibly miss over or skim over, or things that we wouldn't have been aware of. We'll gladly do it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think, because I was trying to look up some nice trivia as well regarding the movie, because it's always nice to know how these things are made. There was a couple of things I found out about some of the budget was being spent on the mines themselves, because I can't remember the name of the mine, but it was filmed in an actual Canadian mine, and apparently the town that they were filming in got so excited that they were going to film there that they'd done up the mine to make it as pretty as possible, costing that town, it was something like 50 grand. The filmmakers didn't want that. They chose that specifically because it looked grimy, so the filmmaker spent 75 grand making it look the way it used to. Which is adorable. But what drives me mad is the fact that 75 grand just to make the mine, which is used for a lot of the film, not all of, 1/7 of that, or less than 1/7 of that, was what Carpenter made Halloween on. That's insane.
But yeah, it's sort of, and I don't think it particularly shows as far as the quality is concerned, considering there's a 3-year gap. And obviously, the quality of film and production and everything else sort of improves year on year. I wouldn't say that there's a massive difference, personally anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be that I've looking at it through sort of rose-tinted glasses, but yeah, I don't think there's any sort of discrepancy between the two of them. But yeah, it's ridiculous as to what could be achieved with such a minimal budget. Like you would be very hard pressed to try and make a film as good as, say, My Bloody Valentine or Halloween, based on that minuscule budget, even possibly with inflation. Yeah. Not to try and get too financially with it, but obviously it was clearly a passion project. People believed in it and then willed it into being, which is really, really cool.
And it's got a massive cult following, My Bloody Valentine specifically as well, which it definitely deserves, but I think it needs a bit more mainstream attention. I think it could have potentially been one of the big franchises had it not been swamped, sadly.
Or maybe people prefer it to be that one. Maybe people want it to be a little hidden gem.
Yeah.
It's our little film. One that only people who sort of watch the film going, I love that movie.
Good point, yeah.
Not enough people know. Yeah, exactly. Maybe people don't want it. It's like shh.
It's a bit like Phantasm, actually, isn't it? Like it's not huge, but if you're a horror fan, you know of it and you love it.
Oh, you do. It's a phenomenal film. Like I think they made 5 in total.
Yes.
I still haven't watched the 5th one,
No.
which I believe is called Ravager.
Yeah, it's so incredibly hard to get hold of. I've been trying for ages.
But yeah, I think it's sort of what not put me off. I will have to watch it at some point. Is that it's not directed by Don Coscarelli.
Yeah. Apparently it shows.
I think that's the only thing.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. And maybe that's what they want to do, is usher in a new somebody new at the reins to kind of take over his franchise, etc. But I have a lot of love for that quadrilogy before they made it into a quintology. 5 of them. V.
Yeah.
Roman numerals, all the things. But yeah, I kind of, I'm very protective of little sort of hidden gems. Maybe say this one, and it could be based on location or your locale. So maybe somebody who's from Canada maybe covets My Bloody Valentine, because it's very, from looking back through it, it does appear to be very Canadian. The actors they used seem to have that sort of very sort of like Saskatchewan, Nova Scotian type accent, which in sort of, it's not too far removed from sort of other North American states, but it still makes it very personable, very sort of specific.
Yeah.
Which I really, really enjoyed.
Oh no, I really enjoyed the film as a total as well. The last thing I could really find on it was at the very beginning as well. The male actors have all come out of the mine on that beautiful opening as well. So where you've got the prelude, where for spoilers, unless you've already seen it, where you actually get to see the killer do his thing, as typically films do. They show you, right, this is your antagonist straight away. But after that, you've got this beautifully shot part where they're all in the mines doing what they do. And then they all come out, and the first time you hear dialogue, they're all in the shower together. And you see it's all steamy. They're all, apparently the actors, most of which were actually naked as well. What you don't know is that water was ice cold. For some reason they couldn't heat it, and they were using fans to blow steam into the room, which was making it colder. I think my balls would have jumped into my throat, shivering. It was God. Just
hugging your body for warmth.
I mean, it just shows those actors are great though, because I thought it was boiling hot.
Oh yeah, and yeah, that's horrific to sit and think you put yourself through that. You know, you're struggling for your craft, etc. But yeah, that makes me appreciate the film a little bit more, knowing the fact that they're icy cold water in Nova Scotia, like regardless as to how hardened they may be, if they were from the area or even close to there, that's
getting moist on cold water.
And then and I'd imagine you're quite far away from being able to get sort of suitably warmed up afterwards. So yeah, that's amazing, that the fact they're able to deliver the dialogue and sort of the little sort of hints as to who they are as individuals whilst in freezing cold water. No way.
I don't know, did you think find any nice little tidbits as well? I could only really find little bits. Again, it's such a non-talked about movie.
I think the only thing that you mentioned is that the fact that they were naked. You didn't have to see that. They could have easily been wearing sort of like Speedos.
Probably should have.
Or like a nice, like a little modesty sock, etc. But obviously, that's just no.
Poor lads.
I think the only other thing I saw about it was that the movie was originally, the intended title was The Secret, rather than My Bloody Valentine. But I think My Bloody Valentine is more suited to what's happened throughout the course of the movie.
It was called The Secret.
The horror element.
Because that makes sense.
The Secret would maybe give me... The Secret might be sort of, for me, makes it sound more like a drama. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
What's that famous movie with, I think it's Neil Jordan. What's it called? Where you find out it's it'll come to me. I'll look it up later on. But it turns up in an episode of Father Ted. Anybody who's never seen the TV show should definitely watch it. But it gets referenced in the cinema episode. It's got where you find out it's not a lady, it's a dude.
Oh no, I've got
what's it called? It'll come to me later on. I'll wake up in a cold sweat, 3-4 o'clock in the morning. But it's a British film. I think it's got Stephen Rea and a couple of other actors, etc. But yeah, it'll come to me. It might just burst it out in the middle of Matt sitting telling some more facts or what he felt about the movie later on. So, getting into the senses of the movie. So, what initially with the sound? What did you think about the sound and how it was sort of utilised throughout the course of the movie?
Yeah, I think sounds, in terms of a horror movie especially, is incredibly important. And sadly, you're always going to be held up against the bar of somebody like Carpenter. I think you're never going to reach Carpenter level, do you know what I mean? You're not Carpenter yourself, but this one itself, the music and the mood. So I'm going to use the terms again. So you've got the non-diegetic sound, which is music and the sounds that the characters can't hear. There's a lot of long drawn out notes that just play, and there's a lot of tense strings. And though I mentioned Carpenter and you can never really quite reach that level of good, what they managed to capture works so incredibly well for them in terms of just music, this is specifically, that it becomes again a character in its own right. There's a lot of, and this is hard to tell whether or not it's diegetic or non-diegetic as well. I don't know if you noticed when there was a couple of establishing shots in the tunnel or in the mines, there was a lot of these sort of weird humming wind sounds, which I imagine you would hear in mines anyway, which is why it's quite hard to tell whether or not it's diegetic to non-diegetic. But it also helps the audience feel uneasy, because when you're in an environment like that, and I've only ever been on them on like excursions and things for history, they're creepy places to be in. So if you were there and you start hearing those weird droning sounds, which are very natural, your mind's going to wander, especially when you know as an audience member there is a killer out there as well. I wouldn't be working in the mine. No, God, no.
So there's a guy went around killing a load of people 20 years ago or the year before or whatever. How about no?
Sign me up.
Back in the 60s, some guy I'd start killing people on Valentine's Day. You know what? I don't fancy doing that. I think I'm going to go somewhere else.
I'm going to take that week off.
I know. You don't hear it going, you know what, that fella that went mad and started killing people on the cafe.
No, I know. Swore revenge in 20 years.
He was horrifically scalded by some steamed milk, and then he's decided to go around just killing people because of said incident.
With frozen milk shards, just stabbing people in the eye.
But I don't know, or maybe he's got like one of those temperature gauges, and going, this guy's cold.
Well, he's got.
Or there could
quips.
be there's loads of little quips, just as he pulls out a shotgun from behind his trench coat. It says, would you like a double shot? And then boom, boom, that's it. It empties both barrels into somebody's chest as they go flying back into the, I think it's called a samovar. Some sort of Gaggia Italian-style espresso machine. Yeah, double shot.
Look at the espresso on your face.
He's got a lovely crema just emanating from his eyes. But yeah, you know what? That could be.
I enjoyed killing you. I enjoyed it. A latte.
Something's horrifically burnt and starts using it going, it's dark roast, that is, or something.
Sounds like James Bond.
Because you get blonde, and he's like, it's a dark roast, or like maybe like a blonde, because you can get a blonde coffee. And there's loads of, there's loads of little quips or innuendos that you can throw in there.
We've got ourselves a movie. Nice. I mean,
coffee thing, barista murders. I don't know.
My bloody barista.
My bloody barista.
No, I mean the last thought I had on the soundtrack itself was, I do believe, because I had to look this up, there was one person who was involved in all of the music. It was Paul Zaza. Who
I'm going to nod and smile and just agree along with you.
Who I heard had a country and western band anyway, which would explain why there's an awful lot of country and western in the bar scenes. That kind of helps with one of the other senses, which I'll go into a little bit as well, because with me not actually being either Canadian or American, for me it's quite nice as an onlooker to hear something that is a little bit different. But yeah, that's my main thoughts on sounds. About yourself?
I was going to ask you as well, that you sort of we've talked about in previous movies. I said the other one that we've reviewed was The Fog, and obviously it uses it as a jazz music instead of rock music, because it was easier to get the licensing for jazz music over, say,
I think it was rock and roll
music, etc. Yeah, rock and roll. Yeah. Obviously, do you reckon they've intentionally picked country and western in order to differentiate itself from, say, other movies where it's very maybe possibly synth heavy, or rock music, which would have been probably very, very popular at that time? Do you reckon that was an intentional one, or do you reckon that was just happenstance or circumstance that's happened where they've done country and western music? Or do you reckon the person who's done the score or the soundtrack trying to cash in on those country and western vibes?
I honestly think I trust the filmmakers in this one, to be honest, because the film itself is really polished. So I'd like to think that they picked Mr. Zaza, if that indeed is his real name. They picked him specifically for that, because that's a good thought that. Like you said, with 1978, just 3 years ago, there was a lot of synth going on. With 1980, Friday the 13th, there's a lot of strings. A lot of strings. So they went as far away as they could, it seems. Never thought of that. It's a good point. If any of the filmmakers are listening, let us know.
Yeah, it's my thoughts on like the sound. It's sort of initially this sort of as it's setting the story up, etc. There's like sort of like a twinkling of minimalist fare. Is what I've written in the notes whenever I was watching the movie. And then what I referred to instead of country and western is honky tonk or honky music, as I think I maybe referred to it, like country and western. 2 seconds there. That's my dog just barking for no reason. I apologise. Anybody who is listening, my dog's called Vincent for the reasons you think it might be. Vincent Price. So I apologise for anybody listening. We'll try and cut that out later on for continuity. It's either that or I've maybe got some sort of terrible tick. The other bits and pieces I picked up, maybe not so much about the sound as far as the music, because you've covered quite a lot of stuff there. It was a diegetic and non-diegetic sounds, is that the term? I think I was using it with my my girlfriend. Diegenic, which is possibly something else, but diegetic, yeah. But I think what I liked about it was the voices and the accents. Obviously, it was filmed in Nova Scotia. I think maybe that's what it was trying to do, is tie itself to that particular locale or that location, so that they kept the Canadian accent throughout the movie, and I think it wears it quite proudly, rather than trying to sort of get somebody in with a different accent, maybe say Boston. It might kind of throw people out or take them out of the movie. So I really like that continuity through the course of the movie. But it also doesn't sort of differentiate itself too much from North America. And I think as well, I'm surprised it doesn't have a bigger following, say particularly in the north of England, just due to the mines. Obviously mines are a huge means of income in the north of England, so I'm surprised that it doesn't have a bigger following, due to the fact that it takes place primarily within the confines of like a mining town, which is so many of them here, particularly in the northeast of England. So I think that that may have a bigger following here, maybe say than somewhere else. But I did like that. And what I did like, I think you mentioned beforehand, there's like sporadic bouts of almost like a discordant harpsichord music. What else did I have? Be like harpsichord, which makes me sort of think a little bit of like almost The Changeling with George C. Scott. Yeah. It makes me think a little bit of that, which I really, really liked it. I think it does get used a little bit in horror movies, but I really like that. Opposite the sort of country and western music, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
And it does have almost sort of some repetitive music. I think maybe possibly, I don't know whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, sort of the repetitive nature or the haunting nature of, say, the Halloween theme.
You're trying to get like a signature sound, do you think? Or
yeah, because that's what you want. You want sort of like The Exorcist has it in spades, The Omen, and then obviously Halloween, Jaws as well. Loads of ones where it's got like not repetitive, but like sort of recurring haunting music. But you think back whenever you think of Halloween, you immediately think of that theme. Yeah. Or Jaws, the same again. And the sort of music as well reminded me a little bit of like James Taylor with his laid-back folk rock.
Yeah,
I think is the term I want to probably using it. And the reason I use that term, I think it's from a scene in where Homer becomes an astronaut in The Simpsons.
Yeah, nice.
Where James Taylor sings them whilst they're floating in space. But yes, so that was my kind of thoughts. I think it was used well.
Yeah.
It doesn't take you out of the movie. It keeps you in there. It just heightens certain aspects. But unfortunately so just doesn't have the same heft as the likes of, say, Halloween, which is very difficult to keep up with.
Yeah, it's solid too.
Right, yeah, and I think maybe that was an intentional one, that it just tries to sort of keep itself just enough away from Halloween.
I think, especially with the likes of sound, this ties in, because obviously with all the senses, you've got some of the ones out you'd feel, well, it doesn't quite fit. It does when you think about it. The way something sounds and looks can make you feel a certain way, so that kind of segues really nicely into especially from a sound perspective, how did that kind of, what mood, what sort of feeling did that give you as well?
Yeah, like it's sort of the way it made me feel was it does make you feel a little bit off key, that you know that something's going to happen. Obviously, the opening scene is very sort of, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, yeah. Oh no,
they got I think sort of we'll get into it a little bit, and this will segue nicely into the site. And I think sort of the initial hook of the movie is it's a bit racy. Somebody's wearing some sort of gas mask, possibly in the realms of, say, some sort of BDSM.
Yeah.
And then it's just immediately sort of descends into some sort of snuff movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the sort of the way they ramped it up, and it just comes out of nowhere. You think, oh, all right, something's going to happen, and maybe it might happen to the two people involved in the opening scene, but it doesn't. It's just really, really well done. But I think it's done well.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate it doesn't get the recognition that it deserves.
It's very raw. That opening scene is so... It's not what I expected, especially when my expectations had been changed by the remake, obviously. So I went in with that in mind, thinking it's going to be this sort of... Not to get too much into the remake, but it's a lot more standard in its way of... That one is a slasher, maybe. It is like more than... I don't know. It's more of a poker.
Yeah, I think it's the remake's a little bit more racy. It's more immediate. It's more in your face, possibly due to the fact that the movie was made for a 3D audience.
Yeah,
and you can tell that, but it's not too cheesy and too over the top. I think it's meant to be more fun.
Yeah, where this one's very raw. It hits kind of, not personally because I've never had anything like that happen, thank God. But it kind of puts you in that place a little bit more. Which
I think it does it very effectively.
Yeah, which does definitely tie in a bit with the feeling. That was the main thing. It was just like to get on to feel, and probably sight, because they couple quite well. It gives you a very sort of rustic atmosphere. You feel kind of dirty when the characters feel dirty, but during their social activities and things, you feel the camaraderie between all the characters, and the tension as well between, is it Axel and that other fella? I'm terrible.
The ex-partner.
Yeah. But there's like a love triangle.
For the life of me, I can't remember the names.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they're sort of both... Because they're both kind of likeable, because there's the main guy, sort of obviously he disappears for a bit, tries to, earn his fortune, and then has to come back with his tail between his legs. And I think it's, is it Haniger?
Yeah.
It's the name of it's the name of the mines, so he's like the son of the family that owns the mines themselves. But yeah, it's really, really well done. There's a little bit of tension. You do feel gritty. You do feel a little bit tense, but you can feel that sort of closeness because they are working in such dark, confined, working sort of environment. Of course they're going to become close because you're not going to be able to function as a unit, doing something very, very dangerous without developing that closeness, which is why they do socialise and they do everything else together outside of work.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm cheating a little bit by combining them to a degree, but a lot of them do couple, so the sight and feeling with sound as well kind of all come as one. Because I don't know about yourself, but when I was watching it, the film itself, in terms of sight, so we're on the sight even now, it honestly feels older than it actually is. So that's not a criticism. I think that's great. I love that feeling. Like when you watch it, the camera quality itself, and I don't know what it was filmed on, what type of celluloid. I should have looked that up.
I kind of like that aspect of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem overly produced or slick.
And that's what
you want it to almost feel like it's almost washed out, etc.
Exactly, yeah. That's what you kind of need with that sort of topic as well. I think it kind of fits the tone really well as well. Like if it had come out and it was slick, and I think again that's what the remake kind of did. It made it a lot slicker, which isn't bad. Again, the two separate films in my opinion, but the original one, it needed that, specifically that rustic atmosphere as well. And I don't know if you noticed, there was an awful lot of use of very crimson red, for obvious reasons probably as well.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to mention as well. Is it's clearly a use of red throughout the course of the movie, obviously to link in with death, blood, Valentines, etc. You know, it's very, very cleverly used, and sort of during particularly the first opening scene, is the whole idea that everything's quite muted as far as the colour is concerned, with the very sort of stark outline of, I think she's wearing red lipstick, and she has the little red heart tattoo. That's very clever, and that's something that the continuity for that throughout the course of the movie is really, really good. And obviously mentioned of things like, say, human heart, blood, things like that, even like the wrappers for Valentine's Day. Very, very cool against the stark, like the greys and the blacks, and the sort of darker, grittier colours. It kind of stands out, which is really, really good. It's even in the headlamp for the masked villain. It's very subtle, but there's like a little red surround. Possibly might be just due to the light shining through the plastic, but there's like a little element of red in and around the headlamp that he has.
I didn't even notice.
With the mask. Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was something that, I thought that you would probably pick up on that. But yeah, very, very clever, nice continuity the whole way through, which just sort of makes you go, right, yeah, you've used that, you've used this. You know, it's very, very, very conscious use of colour throughout the course of the movie, which I really, really enjoyed. It almost made me think, it's like, what's the next red thing going to be? What's the other thing that's going to be red throughout the course of the movie?
Because everything that's red is very important as well, it seems. Like, because every time somebody gets the heart-shaped chocolates or something, you're not sure if it's going to be a heart or... That was
it's used to great effect in what some would possibly class as being a horror movie. Schindler's List.
Yeah.
There's obviously the little girl, I think it's in the red coat, and it's the only thing in colour, as far as I'm aware, that stands out. It's used very, very effectively. But yeah, I think that's something that's used throughout the course of the movie, and I really, really enjoyed that part about it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I think,
I mean, that really leaves where, again, I'm combining them a little bit, but with the smell and taste more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was the same for yourself, but as you're watching the film, you can sort of almost sense the iron, I don't know, industrial flavour of the air, if you know what I mean. Like the way that coal can almost stick in the back of your throat when you're actually there.
Yes, it's palpable. It's really, really, really well done, because I don't think at any point is it coal that they're mining, or I don't think you realistically know, as far as I'm aware, tell me if I'm wrong, what they are indeed mining. All you know is that they work in a mine.
Yeah.
But I don't know as to what they are indeed mining. But maybe that's besides the point. Maybe that's not something that's important. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed that aspect of it. And sort of it's that taste in the air,
it pulls
as
you,
well as it catching the back of your throat, and you could just tell if you worked there that you would have this constant film. There would be dirt under your nails. It would be in and around where you're wearing the mask, around your eyes, around your neck, and everything else. And you could just tell that somebody clearly works down a mine or some sort of industrious workplace. And you've got that tactile nature to it, and that's done in spades throughout the course of the movie, which is really good.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it pulls you straight into where the characters are as well, because obviously with you saying there, it's set in Canada, a very cold location as well. That coupled with the very industrial air, you can almost sense it a little bit, and that might just be because obviously we're living in the north of England there as well. We've got some idea as to what that might actually feel and smell like, but
yeah,
I think that's quite useful in terms of for your target audience as well, to be able to feel what the characters can feel as well. But yeah, I mean that covers my sort of whole sense of the experience as well. I don't know about yourself though.
Other aspects I liked about it, it's obviously it's a visual thing that you can tell the people who were alive, or when you want to use the term present, either they were conscious of what was going on, because sort of the way the story's done, it's very, very clever. It makes you feel as though that the kids were sheltered from this horrific story that's happened, the precursor to the movie coming out, because it happens in the early 60s, whenever the mass killer first strikes and then returns 20 years later to the day. Since Valentine's Day, but yeah, that's sort of that they're sheltered from it, so that the kids seem quite young, still a little bit aged for having worked in an industrious environment. But the elders, like the guy that works in the bar, they're all very wizened. Like the sheriff, who's probably not that old, clearly has been aged by what's happened 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Because they know as to what's going on, and that sort of stressful environment has kind of made them quite wizened and older than what they probably actually are.
They're terrified that is it Harry Warden has come back, where the kids just think of him as some sort of ghost story.
Yeah, and that's something it's I think it's probably been done intentionally. It's sort of very much a horror trope. Trope alert. It's the old crazy fella who's the voice of reason. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. And then obviously they do it, and then a bunch of people get killed. Had they just listened to the crazy old man who works in the bar, a lot of people probably would have survived.
Maybe if they just didn't present themselves as crazy, like people might be more inclined to listen to them. Like
maybe speaking at a normal sort of room room volume rather than outside voice. Inside voice, people might take a little bit more notice of them.
Lower your eyebrows, show them the headlines that you've clearly saved somewhere.
Cultivate facts, evidence, and then you can present them a case of you going, you know what, guys, we should have cancelled that Valentine's Day party at the mine where a bunch of people were killed exactly 20 years ago.
Maybe it's just a bad taste. It doesn't even matter if there's a killer.
I know. Guys, maybe we'll postpone it a week. Say it was Valentine's Day, or like a post-Valentine's Day celebration. We'll respect the tradition of not doing anything nuts. Or maybe the townsfolk themselves. Oh yeah, we're going to do Valentine's Day. Maybe not. Maybe we'll skip this one. Next one, Easter, Lent. Well, it'll be fine. Summer solstice. Just try and keep it sort of light and try and avoid that one particular holiday that happens every year, where a bunch of people didn't get killed.
Yeah, just celebrate June the 4th. I don't know. Nothing's happened.
Yeah, I know. Other aspects of it I quite liked. So as far as sight is like sort of the flashbacks, what seemed to have like quite a lot of smoke, and there's like a lot of soft focus, sort of like to indicate that it happened in the past, and then sort of it's almost like it's done quite a bit in horror movies, sort of in and around that sort of era. With like the soft focus to convey like a dreamlike or a nightmare from the past of the town itself.
Yeah.
And then it sort of follows another trope, which is where you are the killer. You've got that point of view, because I think you see him in the mask watching what the lady's up to.
Yeah.
Just before he strikes, and some of them are quite clever as well, that you don't get to see the kill. You just see the after effects of what's happened to that person.
Yeah, which is quite odd as well, because the likes of Friday the 13th like to show you the kill.
And maybe that's a restraint, or again, it could be like a budget thing. It could be a case of that either they've decided we're going to kill them off screen, and it's just happened. You just weren't present whenever it happened. You just see the after effects of this, sight that you're confronted with. I think there's the one in the shower is pretty horrific. I don't know, based on sort of the constraints of special effects back then, as to how they might be able to do that. You just see the after effect. But yeah, that's other bits and pieces that I really, really enjoyed it. Also as well, for as far as like sort of backtracking here, the sight that you would be kind of blinded by the headlamp of the killer, you wouldn't be able to know it was them until they were upon you, and that's quite scary. I really, really enjoy that aspect
point
of it
as well. Yeah, especially when you consider other people will be using headlights as well in the mine.
Yeah.
So you might even think it's an ally. You'll be like, oh, is Harry Warden behind you? No, you are Harry Warden. It's great.
Exactly. And then the other bit I really enjoyed about it is, not to sort of ruin anything, obviously somebody gets killed in a shower, but it's what I liked is like it's like a crude silhouette rather than showing you the intricate detail.
Yeah.
An example of where they don't show you sort of a crude silhouette, and when I use the term crude, I don't mean that like a bad way. I mean you can just see the outline of a person, so you know something terrible's happened. But in, say, the likes of is it Sleepaway Camp?
Yeah.
They don't pull any punches. They show you every graphic detail as to what has happened throughout the course of that murder, maybe after the fact or during, where you do see the cadaver, the corpse, the person who's went from a past, from a present to a past tense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that was a nice artistic direction they went with it. So we've covered sight, we've covered sound, we've covered taste to a certain extent, and texture. which would be sort of like how it would feel. It would be very dusty and dirty, and me being a clean freak, it would be a nightmare.
Yeah. No. Same. It covers smell as well, because that sort of thing, it sticks in your nose. You get that irony, coalish smell as well.
And you could almost smell the sort of craft beer. I don't think would have been a thing back then.
No.
A lot of people, pounding cans of Schlitz and Miller and Bud and whatever else that happened to be going around then. People are just caning loads of beer because it's I think it's sort of something that mirrors where the area and where we live. People generally in the north or the northeast of England, not to overgeneralise, generally hard-working, hard partying type people. You work hard, you play hard type thing, and that's the sort of thing that I get from the people that work in this mine.
Yeah.
That sort of feel, that smell of people who, I work hard, I deserve to go out and enjoy myself with my friends. But you can smell it almost.
Yeah.
Smell of beer, cigarettes, coal, everything else, whatever it is that happened in mine. Just a load of friends just enjoying each other's company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think because I've probably touched upon all of them now at this point with feel, smell, and everything as well. I suppose my summary of it is I just wish it wasn't quite so unheard of. Mostly because I wish I'd seen it earlier, if you know what I mean. Like, I'd literally only seen it this year, which was quite nice to find that gem. But I'm just surprised more than anything. I can't believe I hadn't actually seen it before.
It is a lot going for it. It's a lot of fun. I think it's a breezy 90 minutes, and I don't think there's any point where it doesn't keep the pace. I think you get to the party quite quickly, and then they spend quite a bit of time with the friends, all doing what as you do in sort of quote unquote slasher movies.
Yeah.
Or people separate from the party. Oh, just me and Veronica, or me and Jessica, or whatever else it would be. Or we're gonna just disappear off into this secluded cabin or the secluded section of the mine. Oh, wouldn't you know, dead.
That should
Anybody
be
else that disappears off, dead. And then you can sort of feel that the killer's kind of closing in on people. Who's the killer? Is it the warden? Is it somebody else? But it's very, very well done, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed the twist as well.
Yeah.
The twist I did not see coming.
No.
Looking back at it now, it kind of makes sense, but initially watching it, I didn't see it, and it's nice to be surprised by a horror film of that age when so many tropes have been created, so many things. Like I've watched movies from in and around that era, and you can kind of see it coming.
Yeah.
The two of the examples that you've given me quote unquote homework for, Sleepaway Camp and My Bloody Valentine, both I didn't see the twist coming at the end of the movie.
Yeah. No, I didn't see.
And you could almost watch the film twice. It's not many movies that do that, where you can watch a movie and then watch it again, and it'll have a completely different feel to it. Sixth Sense, this, and Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah.
To name but a few.
And probably the very first time you saw Friday the 13th, to be fair. It's so
exactly.
well known now that that's kind of ruined itself by being as popular as it is, but...
And bolstered by Scream.
Yeah.
Because Scream, the movie, obviously Wes Craven's phenomenal movie or series of movies, very meta. It makes you aware of it. So I found out what the twist was to Friday the 13th before watching for any of the Friday the 13th movies. So as much as it ruined it for me, it was nice to see it coming.
Yeah.
And it didn't diminish the journey that happens through the course of the movie.
Yeah.
Actually, I tell a lie. I think I probably watched Freddy vs. Jason before I watched any Friday the 13th movie.
Oh, really? Nice.
But what it did very cleverly was it made me want to go back and watch the movies.
Yeah. They've got a lot going for them as well. We'll definitely...
Yeah.
We'll probably go through them as a series at some point as well, to be fair, because they're all good in their own way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think sort of the different actors that portray Jason, the cast that takes place within it, and the different routes that they go with it. Manhattan, hell,
space.
Space. I've a lot of love for that movie. In all honesty, there's some really some gruesome, fun kills in throughout the course of the movie. and then I really enjoy Freddy vs. Jason. Anything that sort of gets people to go back and rewatch the originals, I'm all for.
Yeah.
Getting back to the movie at hand, the bits and pieces I've kind of taken away from it is it leans into a lot of folk-based horror, but obviously makes it more kind of modern, with it being a slasher or a murder. This is probably loads of towns, little sort of historic villages, etc., where they have some sort of folk horror of its own. Like my personal one is, I grew up in a little village in Northern Ireland called Grey Abbey, and there's the horror of the Grey Lady, but this lady that was locked away in a like an abbey tower, and then she throws herself from the window in order to escape. She haunts the grounds of the nearby abbey. But obviously there's loads of stories like that permeate through most countries, or every country to a certain extent.
Every region,
wanting people to
be fair.
Exactly. So it's universal in that extent. That always something terrible will have always happened somewhere before that, present day. And even if it's a case of making people like, don't go in the mine, don't celebrate Valentine's Day, which is an easy thing to sidestep, but obviously they've not done that, which is why a bunch of people got killed.
Yeah, well, that's it. They should have listened to that crazy fella. It's not his fault he looks manic.
Yeah.
And really enjoyed his own personal prank. Like, I think he laughed at it way longer than anybody else would have.
Yeah. But yeah, I like the fact that it sort of falls into local legend and myth and everything else, and it could have easily happened, and such a stressful environment and such a
it might have actually
pressurized
happened.
workplace, it might have potentially happened. So it could have been loosely based on a real story, or sort of one of those ones that a bit like I hate to use the term like Chinese whispers, but throughout the course of the years it becomes more horrific. It might have been he punched somebody in the face, turns into he murdered him, and then it turns from murder to there's a slew of murders and a bunch of dead bodies, and it turns out that's not true.
Yeah, exactly.
If you go back and pick it up more and more, it was it's way grander than what actually happened.
Harry Warden had a disagreement with his shoe,
and it's exactly, and it's progressively got worse over the years, but it still sort of keeps with the moral for most horror movies is like a sci-fi horror, as we mentioned beforehand. Don't fuck with shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't go into the forest, don't go into the cellar, don't read from the book. This one's like, don't go into the abandoned mine, or don't go into the mine whenever nobody else is there, or don't have a party there when 20 years later a bunch of horrific murders took place. Nah, maybe don't.
And a guy promised to come back on that day to kill everyone.
Exactly.
Let's
is
not
it the
tempt
anniversary?
fate.
Yeah. Come back mid-June, you'll be fine. None of the stuff would have happened. Everybody would have enjoyed themselves. They would have had a party. It's a bit somebody wouldn't have ended up getting bundled into a fridge.
Yeah, it's a bit like telling people not to run neck first into blades. Like, just don't do it.
I know. Don't run with scissors. Don't go into deep water. Yeah. Don't go into the place where sharks excel. Not only live, but excel. Little bits and pieces else I took away from the movie. Sort of. What was it? It was the sheriff plays a character in Johnny Mnemonic, and I think Johnny Mnemonic is such a fun film.
Oh, nice.
With Keanu Reeves. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah. I didn't know that was him.
It's the sheriff plays like some guy that's been modded. I think he has like a metal arm, or he has some sort of like metal prosthetics. But yeah, he's the same sheriff. He looks pretty much the same age as to what he did, so he's done well. But I think he has a real name. I think the character that plays him, the sheriff, goes by the name Iron Buffalo.
Nice.
Little factoid for you: the guy that plays him is called Iron Buffalo. Anybody who does happen to be listening wishes to correct me. Maybe it's some other sort of. Maybe it's Iron Bison, Iron.
Ballsack. I don't know.
yeah, it could be anything. Maybe he can really take a good kicking in the testicles, and that's why he's called the Iron Pubis.
The Iron Pube.
The pube.
Kick him in the balls and bruise your foot. But anyway,
it's just that horrific clink as you have to then remove your own toenails due to them being severely bruised and traumatized. But yeah, all in all, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie, and I'm glad to have visited it, and I'll probably revisit it. Maybe not on Valentine's Day, because I don't like to sort of fall into the trope of like only watching a movie in and around a particular era.
True.
That being said, I will probably watch some form of Halloween movie around the Halloween era, but there's so many of them to pick from.
Yeah, that and the new one's coming out, hopefully this year as well. So I'll probably, if I can, triple bill them.
Oh, definitely. I like the fact that both of them have been filmed back to back.
Or if they both come out, I'll quadruple bill 118.
1 through 4.
Yeah, this one. But yeah, no. Out of how many severed beating
Bloody
hearts?
Severed beating hearts. I would probably give it 4.
Yeah, nice.
And I think it's possibly due to the fact that I'm maybe making some unfortunate. It's not unfortunate in a bad way, but there's so many comparisons to other slashers, other masked murders, that it's very difficult to sort of give it, say, a 5. I think it tries very, very hard and wears its heart on its sleeve. But still, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I would give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, nice.
Probably with me, it probably would have said maybe 3.5.
Yeah.
Out of 5 earlier on, but having known a little bit more about it, little bits and pieces that you've mentioned, I'd give it a 4 out of 5. And as we mentioned beforehand, everything starts at like 50%. So what I've given it is like an 80.
Yeah.
80 out of 100 or an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, definitely. I'd be more inclined to give it the 3.5. The only reason being would be that it does try to have all of the trope elements in it in terms of the signature sound and things. But I can't remember it. I can't honestly, even now, sadly, can't remember what the signature sound would be. Mm-hmm. In as much as you say the word Halloween, you're hearing the sound right now. I guarantee it. But again, if 0 is 50%, that takes it up to 75, maybe more even, 80.
Yeah, it's with such a well-trodden genre.
I think
that's really, really good because there are so many slashers out there.
Yeah, I think why it doesn't, because obviously I think I gave 4 to The Fog. So what I was trying to think was, do I like it as much as I like The Fog? Definitely not. But I do like it. I really do, and I would, honest to God, watch this film if you've not seen it. It's really good. But some of the characters in it, where The Fog had everyone in it was likable in their own way. Despite the nanny that we mentioned, who was clearly evil as hell, there was a character in this My Bloody Valentine that every time he spoke, I just wanted him to die. I want him so much to die. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. It's I like the fact that there's fodder in the movie.
Yeah.
You want people who are basically dicks in the movie. Like I want him, her, a couple of them, both dead. Please murder them brutally.
They're normally called Chad or something in Friday the 13th. Chad Huffington.
and Lance. Yeah, this is unfortunately. Yeah, oh yeah.
Lance Big Man.
Chad Hogan getting brutalized. But yeah. Somebody with some sort of puka shell necklace and a really tight medium t-shirt on. Yeah, you want that. You kill that guy.
I mean, the love triangle bit in it was nice. There's not much of that going on in horrors. I'm never that big on... If I'm watching a film and it's heavy on love interest, it kind of puts me off a little bit. If you're watching a film called My Bloody Valentine and there's no love interest in it, you're probably watching a wrong film though. So I expected it. And they pulled it off well.
I think it did enough. Mm-hmm. It did enough for you kind of like to like the characters enough, the ones that you want to survive, and then the ones that you kind of you're not really arsed about.
I think
bump them off. I like the guy with the mustache.
Yeah, so did I. He's weirdly likable.
He's like a
very big Mario.
He's like, yeah, or like Wilford Brimley's son.
Yeah, God. But no, I think what took it away from the 4 for me was the whodunit element. As much as it's definitely rewatchable and you would get a different experience watching it the second time. In as much as Friday the 13th Part 1's not quite as good as Friday the 13th Part 2 onwards, the whodunit element does get a little bit tiresome when you already know whodunit. Not tiresome in a bad way. Again, it's something I would highly recommend. But when you're watching like Friday the 13th Part 3, when he even gets his mask, you just want to watch him nag at these irritating kids at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's yeah, you just go around, what do you want to do? You want to watch Friday the 13th? I want to watch Jason Voorhees go in and just Kill a bunch of teens.
It's like Psycho 1, 2 and 3. My least favourite of all three is Part 2. Part 1 is... It's kind of a whodunit, but it doesn't matter. It's not the point of the movie. Part 2 is at that point a whodunit. If you've not seen it, again, watch it. It's an amazing film. Part 3 I absolutely adore, because you know it's Norman Bates and you just... You're behind him. He's your anti-hero a little bit in it.
Yeah. I think that's as I get older, I root more and more for the killer.
I really wish they'd done a My Bloody Valentine 2 for that reason, because I feel like a sequel, just one maybe, or two if you wanted to, might have taken it to Friday the 13th levels of you already know who the killer is, you're just enjoying the ride at this point.
Yeah. One of the things I did look into, the director approached Paramount Studios, I think, in 2001 with a sequel idea, but they didn't pick it up due to the original not taking as much money as they would kind of hope it would.
It's a shame.
Yeah, and I think maybe, you know what? I kind of wanted to be this little gem.
Yeah.
I don't want it to have the high praise and stuff like that it has, because then too many people would watch it, and then potentially might get made some sort of series of sequels or remakes where it's just not going to be as much fun as the original one. The remake is a lot of fun.
I think we might even
it jumps more into it.
Yeah, we could even devote an episode to it later on if you all want it, but the way I kind of watch the remake now after having seen this, because I did watch the remake soon after watching the original, it feels almost like a sequel almost. If you take away the characters' names like Axel and Harry Warden, that could have happened. Do you know what I mean? You can watch this as just history repeating itself almost. It's a bit like The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which is technically a weird sequel to True Events. I won't go into that because that I think is something definitely worth going into in detail at some point as well. But yeah, just because with me noticing the time, I don't know if we want to go into the remake an awful lot at this point.
Maybe not. Maybe we'll save it for another one where maybe we go through a series of remakes that we've already covered. We could do the remake of The Fog, we could do the remake of My Bloody Valentine, and we could do the remake of the next, which brings us onto our next subject, which is what our next review is going to be around. So I picked this one, decided to go a different route as to what we've had so far, and it's going to be Let the Right One In.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, it's a 13-year-old movie now. It came out in 2008, I believe.
Oh, really?
Directed by Thomas Alfredson, yeah. Based on a book. But yeah, we could maybe do that as a trilogy. So we could do the three movies that we've reviewed and then discuss the remakes.
It's a good idea.
Where they go well, and maybe try to avoid sort of going down the route as to what it's not done as well.
Yeah.
Maybe just reinforce as to how much we love the originals, rather than the remakes, or what the remake does to make us want to revisit the original.
Yeah, definitely a good point. I'm really looking forward to doing Let the Right One In, because it's another one which we'll go into. I'm not going to go into it now, obviously. It's another one I only saw very recently, so it's still fresh. So I'm actually I'm looking forward to revisiting it with a reviewer's eye. But that'll be...
yeah, and as we sort of wrap up, so yeah, if there's any suggestions you wish for us to go through, please message us on @podcast in the Backseat. Any suggestions you have for us, we will gladly pick, specifically if it's ones that we've not watched beforehand. If there is any ones that we'd be unwilling to watch, there is one off the top of our heads which we possibly might discuss later down the line, that we would discuss as to, even though we wouldn't watch that movie, how somebody willed that into being.
It could be worth
any suggestions.
If you do suggest things of that topic, because we won't name it, we don't want to shame. That's the whole point. It's from a subject of love. We might even devote an episode to the films that we won't do and why. But again, from a very positive perspective as well. But we would need more.
The fact
than
that
one.
anything gets
at that point.
and I think it's sort of there's a lot of time and effort went into making a film. Even if we don't particularly enjoy it, it's still so difficult to get anything made. The fact that it's happened is really something to be celebrated, even though we might maybe not enjoy the subject matter which it has to sort of portray.
You could say about a lot of, because with genres, that's why we chose to talk about horror, because it's something we love. Why would we choose something we hate to sit and talk about romance novels or something like that? We're not going to do that. That's not to take away,
unless
though,
it's like
fans,
the one, I think that's there's going to be a lot of people that won't enjoy the genre, which we love so dearly. And without love stories, we wouldn't have had this horror film, would we?
That's true.
Love story, Valentine's
true,
Day,
yeah.
dead teens working in a mine.
On that bloody note, I want to thank everyone for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure being with you again, sir.
Yeah, and enjoy your stomach pounder and Coke.
That's become a thing now. Oh.
If anybody wants to suggest as to what a stomach pounder is, please drop us a message.
If John Carpenter wants to tell us actually what a stomach pounder is, even better.
I'm interested. I want to know. I want to know more.
Honestly, I'm dying to know.
As to what a stomach pounder is. That you have before breakfast.
I'll take 4, please.
4 stomach pounders. On my deathbed, I sampled a stomach pounder.
That's what put you on your deathbed.
Yeah, 4 stomach pounders and a Coke.
God. But anyway, thank you very much for listening. Do tune in next time. The next episode is just going to be more general topics again. Maybe scenarios. We'll think of even, I don't know, which character do you think would win in a fight? If you've got any suggestions on that, just write into our podcast in the backseat. Happy to listen. But I've been Matthew Hutton. Have a good night.
I've been Wayne Alex. Bye.